Hello, Witcher friends. Welcome back to the Witcher Lorecast. This is your host, Tom, or Robots, and I am here, as usual, with the grumpiest toast in all the land, Grumpy Toast. Welcome back to the show,
No,
Toasty.
I'm not Grumpy Toast. This is not a thing that we're going to do.
Man. This is why you need to be our patrons, so you can see the extended version of the show, which will now be attached to this episode. And you can hear the whole section where we just made an AI read all the names of the different schools of the Witchers while we were prepping for the show. And also decided that Toasty's new name is now Grumpy Toast.
We didn't decide that. It's a lie.
Well, some of us did. I mean, there's three of us here because it's you and me and Ben of Temeria, our Leshen level patron. Ben, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
Well, hello.
We're excited to have you here. This is going to be awesome because this is our first patron episode, and you are our only patron, which means we get to interview
only
you.
Leshen patron.
Only Leshen patron, because we have a brand new patron, Turbo Toboggan, who is also somebody we've known from some of the other shows we do. He's also a big part of our community. He goes by the name Kather Noxblood, but he also goes by his new name, Turbo Toboggan, which Toasty and I both agree is a much better name. And
I do agree to that one. That naming, I agree with.
Yes, we agree with that naming. But in the pre-show, Ben, who came all the way from Temeria, thank you for traveling all this distance.
No problem.
Not through a portal.
Not through a portal.
No, not portals.
So,
portals are bad.
So he legged it.
He legged it all this way. Did you ride a horse? Do you have a roach type horse?
Yeah, I have a horse.
What's the name of your horse?
Shadow.
I also like the two blades behind you over your shoulder there.
Right?
Yeah. Are you a Witcher yourself, Ben?
Oh yeah, always.
Okay. So we're gonna get into this episode. You are our only Leshen tier patron, which means we get to talk about whatever you want to talk about. So I was thinking we would interview you. We'd kind of go into your adventures, get into some of your interest in the Witcher games and books and some of your perspective on all of this stuff today for this specific episode.
Yeah.
And kind of into those details. But just to wrap up the pre-show talk, because there were three of us, and that means it's a democracy by default, and both Ben and I agreed that your new name is Grumpy Toast, then that means it must be official. Toasty's not having any of this.
Agree with me, Ben, or I will take away all your Patreon benefits.
Oh man,
this
he's
is
playing
blackmail.
hard.
I will let it be known.
So,
I'll
just
use Axie.
Man, he really is a Witcher. Okay, so let's get into this, Ben. So here, let's start with this. Well, first of all, because you said you are a Witcher, what school of the Witcher do you hail from?
School of the Wolf.
Oh man, he's even got his medallion there.
Yeah, he's got the medallion hanging on the swords back there. Look
He's got it in the swords. You're right. I see that now. So your School of the Wolf. And where did you first now let's break the let's break the meta lore a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Where did you first come across The Witcher, and what brought you into the series?
So I was always really big into fantasy RPGs growing up. RPGs in general. Actually, to a friend's house one time when I was going in high school. He was playing a brand new game, Witcher 2, and started looking at it. It's like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, what the heck is it? He explained it. You're a monster slayer. You can use magic. There's lesser magic, and I was like, all right, cool. What's it called?
There's a really hot redhead in it. She gets naked.
Yeah,
all that stuff. High school boy. Okay, this is awesome. I love it. Great.
So I find that interesting. So you said you started with Witcher 2.
So I was shown off The Witcher 2. I did go back and play The Witcher 1 before I played The Witcher 2.
Oh wow. Okay. Because that's kind of a hard.
I wanted to know more like the lore and the story.
Yeah, that's a hard jump to make from a gameplay perspective, because the storylines in The Witcher 1 are great. Like, the stories are written really well, but from a gameplay perspective,
was a little tough to persevere through because it was old style click.
Oh yeah,
just click and scroll. So
yeah, for anybody who is not familiar with The Witcher, the original Witcher gameplay, that game came out what, 2007?
I think.
Yeah. And it is a top down. It is not like over the shoulder third person. It is a top down. You run around, you run up to a creature, and depending on how you click, you do
basically over the shoulder. It's not like it's not vertically above. You're like
it's isometric,
at a weird angle behind, but it's more over the shoulder than top down. I would say.
Yeah, it's kind of got this weird isometric kind of like it's a little bit more removed than you are in 2 or 3. It's a little bit more off the battlefield. Would you agree with that? It's a little bit further up, I guess.
It's a weird angle. But
it is a weird angle.
It's not like you're not vertically up looking down like it's not quite as extreme as like Fallout 1 or something.
Yeah, it's a little bit more isometric than 2 or 3, but you are further away. And depending on how you click, you perform like light attacks or heavy attacks.
Yeah, they had weird combos. Like if you hit at the right time, you do a combo.
Yeah, there were timing attacks.
Different keys to switch to the different kinds of attacks. Had to keep in mind which ones were better for what enemies.
There's like 3 different styles, I think. Like wolf.
It was like
Griffin,
wolf, and
cat.
Yeah.
And you had different fighting styles between each. Very unique mechanics.
Geralt, for regular heavy attacks, when Geralt uses the sword, and he's holding the sword up here over his head. Geralt, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's right. And the game that game was a little rough around the edges. Like the stories are good. Some of the quest lines, especially as you go into the game further and further, are actually very interesting. But the combat mechanics are pretty rough, and the voice acting's kind of rough. The character models, like the Geralt in the first game, is
not pretty looking.
He's not pretty looking. He's a little bit more accurate though to lore.
True.
Yeah, according to the lore, that's better Geralt like visualization. He looks more like how Geralt's supposed to be.
He's less of a he's. What's the
he's
best
not
way
a hunk.
He's not
like
a
Witcher 3 or Henry Cavill.
Right.
Yeah.
He's not a hunk, but he's more of like this like slim. Okay, so if you were to take away the weird eyes and the weird like oddly pale skin, and you just look like the shape of his face and like the slim hair, and like he's kind of got this more like rock star pretty boy quality to him. But then he's definitely got this like messed up looking face.
Yeah, scars freaking everywhere.
And scars everywhere. Yeah.
Not as bad as Eskel though.
Yeah, not as bad as Eskel. No. But so okay, that's interesting. But you made it all the way through The Witcher 1.
Yeah, I went all the way through Witcher 1, then started Witcher 2. And then like midway through Witcher 2, I found out that the games are actually a sequel, like a pseudo sequel to the books.
Right.
And then I actually start reading the books while playing Witcher 2, and then Witcher 3 came out, and I actually started a new 4th playthrough for that. So
wow. Okay, so then that's when you lost your actual life and you became
pretty much
a real Witcher. You moved to Temeria.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Nice. Okay. Cool. So 4 playthroughs. You've read through all the books.
Yep.
And now you're on your 4th playthrough. Wow. So, okay. So let's talk favorites.
Ooh.
I know this is
controversial.
This is controversial stuff, right? When it comes to the games, is Witcher 3 your favorite?
Come to the games, yes. The Witcher 3 is probably my favorite.
It's the most fleshed out. And it's the
most fleshed out, most open, to where you have the freedom to do pretty much what you want. Where Witcher 2 is a great game. It's just it's open to a point, but still linear, to where you have to go through the path.
Right. When it comes to the books, do you have kind of a favorite book? Do you have like a go-to, like if I was to reread a book again, this would be my go-to reread.
I have an answer for this, and I if Ben doesn't say it, I'm leaving.
Personally, I love Blood of Elves. I really love the Blood of Elves book.
Toasty's the kind of fan who believes that everybody has to have the same opinions as him.
But I do like Baptism Fire as well. That one's pretty good too. But
Did he answer correctly, Toasty?
Yeah, those are the best two in my opinion.
Okay, all right.
I was like, he better say Blood of Elves. He better.
Blood of Elves is phenomenal. Though I did recently read through Season of Storms, and it's really cool in that book because they take. If you ever read the Witcher comics, they actually did one of the little short stories in Season of Storms. They did an entire comic book for. And expanded, which is really cool.
Yeah,
cool.
I liked Season of Storms. Yeah.
Okay, so we've established favorite game, favorite books. Now, in comparison to the games and the books, how do you feel about the Netflix series?
So far, so good. I'm very. Season 1 was weird how they did the timeline flops.
Right. Yeah, they jumped around a bunch, but I think it was because
jump around in the books too.
They do jump around in the books.
That's true too. Yeah.
Nothing in the books for those first two books is like chronologically in order either. You just have to like pick it apart. So it kind of makes sense.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Well, they're building characters for people who, I mean, obviously those are the three most important characters, and they're trying to. The sense I got from the first season is they're trying to say, okay, this is who's important and this is why. Let us get you up to speed so we can then kind of move forward with the stories. That was the feeling I got.
Yeah. I think it just made it, I think the complication was the fact that there was more to it because we get Geralt in the books and like we learn about the stuff with Ciri through the Geralt stories. So I think it was a bit more complicated to like do two separate stories there. And then on top of that, they threw in Yennefer, who takes place like 100 years in the past or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, but go ahead, Ben. I don't want to jump on top of you.
Oh, yeah, you're good. As season 1 was reading since they were doing a lot of short stories from Last Wish and Sword of Destiny, is cool to get more stuff from Yennefer because we barely got anything from her in the books. And it's interesting how they threw Ciri in there because she was never in the stories, like until like I think towards the Sword of Destiny actual short story in Sword of Destiny.
Yeah, so I have a theory about this, and I think it's along the lines of if they had made The Witcher first season all about Geralt, then with so many fans who have read so many of these books and played the games and being so big about the female characters, it would have come across very male centric. Even though the books were very Geralt focused at first and then worked in the female characters, I think there would have been a lot of like, but what about the women? The women are such a big part of these stories, and in fact become an even bigger focus as it moves on. Like Geralt isn't necessarily the sole point of the books. But they needed, and they needed to make those characters just as or equally as important. And I think that's the heart of the story, is like the relationship between these three characters ultimately is what they're trying to make the series about. It's that triangle. And that's what's going to keep that's going to be the core of the series throughout however many seasons they end up doing, will always be that triangle. So they needed to set that up as the core in the first season. That's my theory, at least.
Yeah, I fully agree on that.
It also gives you a better idea of it. Like it's not just gathering the details based on like the rumors and stuff that you hear, because that's how you get it in the books, is you learn about the stuff because Geralt hears like the news and whatnot, and that would just be too complicated for new people, I think, of like randomly hearing the news of like, hey, this thing happened over here in Sintra, and it's like, no, what's going on? So
yeah, I agree. So do you think, Ben, the way they did Geralt in the series was, how do you think that came off? Obviously it's not identical to the books. It's it's an interpretation. Obviously,
yeah.
obviously Henry Cavill is more handsome than Geralt would have been in the books.
Cavill is sexy.
He's a ladies' man. He's a man's man. He's an everybody man.
Bathtub scenes.
He's
Gotta have the bathtub
right.
scenes.
Like he's a good looking dude. He I don't know, but they also have to make it an appealing show for the masses. They need this to be a success so that they can continue to do that. And I, for one, like, it would be really cool to have a 100% lore accurate TV series, but I know that they can't.
Happens.
They can't pay for it.
Yeah, that can't happen.
They can't pay
That
for
never
it.
happens for anything.
That never happens for
No.
anything because you need to be able to pay to have the series. You need the money to make the series, right? So I would rather have a series do well, have the money to get like really cool on-site locations, really good special effects, really good equipment and gear and weaponry, really good training, really good
choreography.
weapon
because it was
choreography.
super good in that season.
Yeah, I'm
It was
okay
done by the
with
guy
that.
who was the from Game of Thrones. He was the Night King, I think.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, he did the choreography for the sword fighting.
nice.
Ooh.
So how do you feel about all that stuff?
I think they did really well. Like Henry Cavill's performance as Geralt, I think was really well. I was shocked how quiet he was, like through half the season. Because if you read the books, Geralt is a nonstop chatterbox. He doesn't shut up. But I think he is going well, and I think season 2 it's going to be a lot more him talking and interacting with other characters.
Yeah. Yeah, I think because he kind of has to.
Oh yeah.
Like he's kind of being pulled to the forefront, and that's kind of where this show's going, right? Now, as for the games, when you approach the games, do you have, especially with The Witcher 3, do you have kind of a way that you play the games? Do you tend to role play yourself? Because there are some decisions that you have to make in the games. You are given these moral quandaries. You can. And Toasty and I talk about these kinds of things on the show a lot. You can try to tread the line of neutrality. You can kind of step in and try to do the right thing. Witchers are supposed to be kind of neutral and not take sides, but sometimes Geralt takes sides.
Right.
Like
Sometimes.
Well,
All the time.
sometimes he doesn't.
Neutrality all the time.
Right. But sometimes he doesn't have a choice. Sometimes he feels like he's doing the thing that sometimes like there are lots of reasons why he breaks those reasons and breaks those boundaries. We're not going to go into the details here, but like, how do you approach that stuff in the games?
I kind of put myself in his shoes and basically do what he probably would have done. Sometimes I do, depending on the quest and depending on like what I'm doing. Sometimes I'll just go neutral, or if I feel like if they did something terrible, offer their heads. Like it just depends.
Yeah. Well, sometimes neutrality is the same thing as balance. Like this is another like concept that you can play with. This is the idea that like. Sometimes neutral means walking away and letting whatever happens happen. And sometimes neutrality means bringing balance to the situation. So like the bad guys are taking, advantage of the situation, and somebody needs to balance the situation in order to bring back neutrality to the situation. Do you see the difference there? Like,
Yeah.
Is neutrality the thing that would have happened should the bad thing never have happened before? Or like there are ways of interpreting that. So there's different ways that you can kind of argue those points, but that's interesting. So you're basically role playing as Geralt through the missions. Now you've played through The Witcher 3. Now you're on your 4th playthrough. Do you end up making the same decisions every time, or do you try different decisions?
Sometimes like my first couple playthroughs, I tried different decisions. And then like my 3rd and 4th, I go off of what I feel like what I want to do.
Okay.
Like I even like when I played Skyrim, for instance, like I did both sides of like the war campaign and see which one side I would like prefer more.
So you
the
play
other.
with the mechanics and just kind of see what happens a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you ever min-max a playthrough and really start just playing with like, okay, what if I, look up a guide and I go for just like, all signs build and just start blowing everything up, or, all, potions build and I just like kill things with one hit.
Not really. I don't really do a whole lot of min-maxing, and pretty much only any game I really play. I like to balance it out with my different abilities. And like, even because I do like a challenge, I do like fighting the monsters like at a challenging rate. I have not played the game on Death March, and I probably will never will. That's way too hard for me.
Yeah, I mean, some of the monsters can actually be pretty tough. So
I haven't either, and I'm not going to probably. I'm not very good at video games, so I'd rather enjoy the story. I'm a very story-oriented guy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I can understand that. So I'm curious. Go spoilers. I'm going to preface this with spoilers, guys. Your first ever playthrough of Witcher 3, what ending did you get?
Oh, shoot. What ending did I get? I'm pretty sure I had Ciri die.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was. I messed up a few times.
I mean, they make it tough. They make it tough.
Like, those reactions to those choices are so fast than normal. You really have to like know exactly what the words say before you even go into it.
Yeah, I think there's a few times because you can like pause during those, and there's a few times where I'm just like pause, and I'm like,
crap.
Okay, what do I want to do in this situation? And you sit there and think for like 10 minutes, like, oh, this moral quandary really has me.
So I had her die on accident. I was with Yennefer, and then I think that's it, majority of the ending. I know I didn't do the quest for the whole Dijkstra becoming king or whatnot. So Emir took over. Shoot.
Yeah, it's hard to think through all the different things.
That was just one
on my fourth.
Mostly the Ciri thing. That was my that was my main question.
Normally,
that's
I after that, I've always have her live because it's better having her alive.
Oh yeah, it's like a terrible ending whenever she dies. I was like, this is awful. I hate myself.
So I have to pat myself on the back. I first playthrough, picked everything correctly. Had no idea that I was picking everything correctly, and got the right ending. And made those choices based on what I would have chosen, because I am the father of my daughter's 20 years old now. And I picked what I would have chosen as a father. And then I got the good ending. And I was like, affirmation. I'm a good dad. That's great. I felt so good about myself. I was just like, that's amazing. Yes.
Was she Empress? Was she a Witcher?
She was a Witcher.
Okay.
Yeah, I got that was the
That's
same
the best
for me.
ending.
Yeah,
my thing
I got best ending.
I just hate Emir so much.
I know, right?
Ditto.
I just hate him. He's just like such an a-hole, and I'm like, nah, dude,
totally.
I'm not gonna visit you. Go. I don't want your money. I don't want anything to do with you.
Yeah, go jump off a cliff. Crazy guy. All right. Hey, you know what? We gotta go do our middle of the show thing and thank both of our patrons, one of which is here. 50% of our patrons are here right now. But we'll come back because I've got some more questions for you. And so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Very well. Let us get this over with. Something has infested my vineyard.
Great. Let me go prepare my something oil then.
All right, so here we are in the middle of the show, and thanks again to Ben of Temeria for supporting us and joining us today. This has been super fun so far. I can't wait to get to some of the other questions I've got for Ben. And thank you to Turbo Toboggan for joining us as well. If you'd like to help support the show, Toasty and I would love your support. If we've helped you get through your workday or your workout or your drive to work, or you're working on the coal mine going down
any manner of work,
any sort of work,
any activity that has the word work as a part of it,
work, or anything else that starts with a W, like
Winning a soccer game.
Winning or Wawa. Going to Wawa to wash your car. That's also a time that you could be listening to a podcast.
Or going to Walmart.
Walmart.
If you go to Walmart, though, I don't know what's wrong with you.
Yeah, Walmart will steal your soul, so don't go there. Don't sue us, Walmart. Don't sue us. I'm pretty sure they don't listen to this podcast. But yeah, thank you. Check out patreon.com/Witcher Lorecast and check out the different tiers. There's all sorts of fun stuff we would love to give to you for your support. And we'd also love to talk with you at the end of next month, which would be this month by the time most of you guys are going to listen to this. And that's all we got to say, because I've got some awesome more questions. That's not how English works for Ben of Temeria.
Awesome questions.
Here we go.
You smell of death and destiny, heroics and heartbreak.
It's onion.
Right, yeah.
Guys, there was a time when I did recorded podcasts that weren't live. And I'm sure everybody in the world thought I was so good at talking. And then I made this really smart decision like a year ago. And I was like, I'm going to do all my podcasts live. I'm going to start doing shows with like co-hosts. And it's going to be great. And then I proved to the world that words don't work so great in my brain. So there we go. So I have a question for you, Ben of Temeria. If you really are from Temeria. Here's the thing. You've proven that you are well versed in the world of The Witcher, in the ways of The Witcher. You got the books, you got the games, you got the TV show. You've seen Nightmare of the Wolf, I'm sure. Yes, yeah. Okay,
yeah.
We got to talk about this before I get to this question. So let's pause on my question. I was going to go. What'd you think of that?
I thought it was pretty good. I really like the character development they showed Vesemir, because we don't get that ever in the books,
right?
And we only really know him more from the games. That's it. But it was really cool story how they're tying that in with the Netflix series. It was weird because I know you guys said this on the last show you guys did, that Geralt wasn't actually at the Battle of Kaer Morhen, but he was there this time. It was kind of weird. And they kind of threw that in the lore, but it was, it's pretty vague and loose in the lore, I guess. But I thought the movie was great. I love the studio that did it, the animation style. It's actually done by I believe the same studio that did Legend of Korra. If you guys
is it?
Yeah, it's done by the same team, Studio Mir, that's done Legend of Korra.
Okay,
oh
yeah.
My gosh.
Huh. Yeah, because it looks good, and my son has watched Legend of
improved greatly, because Korra did not look that good.
Right, I've seen some of those because he watches here. He did watch those
just
shows.
Finished the second season of Korra. So.
Yeah, I've kind of popped in and I haven't sat down and watched them all, but I've seen them while they were on the TV while he was watching them. And yeah, it seems like they've improved, or they just threw more money into it and they said, do what you do,
Netflix,
and like
they just threw more money.
It's a Netflix budget, so they can afford more. I know Korra was only lit for the first season,
and then it was partially lit.
For the second season, and then they were
third, and then the fourth.
Well, they were lit for 2 more after the second season, and they were like, okay. So Korra was just a catastrophe with that. So.
Okay, so you got all these things under your belt. That doesn't really make sense. Inside your brain. There you go. So with all that stuff in your brain, and with confirmation from CD Projekt Red that they not only are working on more Cyberpunk, but more Witcher stuff, not just the mobile game, not just Gwent, but chances are they would be ridiculous not to do a Witcher 4 or a future Witcher game of some sort. What do you think they're going to do? Are we going to get more Geralt? Are we going to get a series? Are we going to get a different Witcher series? Are we going to get like old-timey Witchers doing stuff in the old days? Are we going to get a different school?
I've always theorized about this. I doubt we'll get another game with Geralt, unfortunately, because they did say his story is basically done.
It kind of makes sense, right? They've kind of wrapped up his story.
Plus, there's not as many monsters out there anymore. So he still can do Witcher contracts time to time, but it's not like, with Cyberpunk being out, I can see them doing maybe a Ciri game, like of her time before The Witcher 3, to like her popping into different worlds, because she does reference cyberpunk in one scene when you go find her at the cabin on the Isle of Mists.
Right. She does kind of make a reference, but I would imagine that that's more of just like I don't know, just a fun little side
like
note.
Expansion.
Yeah, I don't see that as the grounds for a full a game. I see that as more of just a fun reference. What else do you think they might do though?
I feel like if CD Projekt is listening, please do this. Make a game to where you have a character creation engine, create your own character, and then choose what school that you want to come from. And then it's be set, I would say, a couple hundred years before Geralt's time, to where there's more monsters in the world.
Like 200 years ago.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
And to where there's a lot more to do. You can expand, just not just Temeria or Nilfgaard or Novigrad, go to like Kavir or Kedwin, go to all the other different countries. That's what I would really like to see.
Yeah, like a big, full, expansive map, open world, travel the world. Okay, so if they're going in that direction, that starts to butt up against the idea of something like a Witcher MMO.
True.
How would you feel about that? And would it feel crazy to have a game where everyone's running around as a Witcher? And side question, what if you don't just create yourself as a Witcher? What if you could be a Witcher or a magic user or like a soldier / mercenary? Like, what if there were multiple classes you could choose from?
Oh, I'd be in that life, and I'd just do that constantly if that was a thing.
I think for like, just for the sake of realism, if they do that, they need to do it in like a Fallout 76 server size.
Yes.
I don't want to play like, there's not that many Witchers.
You don't want like an ESO
put it on a massive. Yeah, you can't have a massive MMO where there's like 100 people on like, like ESO. Yeah, that's a good example, because like there's people everywhere in ESO. So I think it would have to be more sparingly.
What if they were to take that kind of concept and they were to throw it into like a alternate world setting, or what if they were to justify it with some sort of conjunction of the spheres, like a reconjunction of the spheres that just like blows everything open, like a second conjunction of the spheres that sends the world into turmoil. And now you have like monsters flooding the world and a reemergence of the need of Witchers. And so you have like a bunch more Witchers coming out. What is this? 3?
It'd have to be the third conjunction of the spheres. The third second conjunction of the spheres has already happened.
Right. The third. So you got another one, right?
Witcher. Didn't that happen in Witcher 3? The second?
Right. So that was, yes. So you'd have like some, and this is just an idea for you would have some sort of, narrative reason for this, right? Mm-hmm. But this idea of like, there's some sort of reason why we thought everything was winding down. We thought the world was getting safer. We thought that humanity was taking over with all of their terribleness and all of their empire and all of these things. But now all of a sudden the monsters are flooding into the world again. And humanity is now begging for more Witchers, right? And so, like, Amir and the other lords of the land are pulling together all of the sorcerers that they can get and all the alchemists and everybody to make as many Witchers as they can. And, they're begging the elves to come out of the woods and help them fight, and they're giving them lands, and because they can't hold them against the monsters, and they're working with the dwarves, and they're like, it's forcing the peoples of the world to come back together, this sort of thing, in order to fight against the monsters, right? This sort of thing. And so now you have a reason for an MMO where you get to pick a race, and maybe they've fixed up the formula so that you can be a man or a woman and you can still be a Witcher. right? Mutations allow you to go into different kinds of classes that give you a little bit more ability in the magic and the science side of it, or a little bit more ability in the swordplay side of it. They give you a little bit more options to be, maybe you could even be part, dwarf, or maybe you could be part elf or something like that. Like now you have an MMO where you can really, everybody's a Witcher, but you're different variations of Witcher that are being designed to fight back these monsters. And you've got a reason to be in this world flooded with these new Witchers to fight back more monsters than the world has ever seen before.
Yeah, I'd be down for that. That's all. I mean, honestly, though, if CD Projekt, whenever they make the next Witcher game, you can bet that I'm probably going to buy it anyway. So
yeah, I mean, and who knows if this is even a thing, right? This is just like off the top of my head. Like, let's come up with a reason for a Witcher MMO. Well, here would be a reason to do it, and this is why are there now thousands of Witchers in this world? Well, this is why, right?
Yeah. So, I think for a standalone, like a continuation of the Witcher series, that's not an MMO or anything, like just a new thing. I think maybe it'd be. I mean, I don't know what they would do with maybe some series stuff. I don't really know. It's kind of like, I feel like the story kind of wraps up for both of them there. It's a good ending for both of them, depending on what you get, of course.
And that's the thing too, like the endings can be so different. They can't really make a full-fledged sequel to it, really. I mean, they could if you wanted to, but
I mean, you just have to pick an ending. That's the thing.
True.
Like, with stuff like that, you always have to pick an ending. My thought is that the ending that would be most likely to be the canonical ending is not the happy one.
Because everything is so sad.
Where Ciri becomes a Witcher, this is not that. It's either going to be the Nilfgaardian one, although it seems like that's a little bit too like all the good things are happening, like they succeed and then Ciri becomes the empress and like basically changes the world for the better. That seems too feel good. I feel like the most likely canonical ending is the bad one, because that's Witcher.
Yes.
Nothing good happens.
Nothing good. And
So, but it'd be cool to like branch out, because I know we were talking about like the School of the Crane and the School of the Manticore, which we basically have no knowledge of. I imagine we could get a brand new character from maybe one of those schools, which are kind of off in these locations that we've never visited before. So basically new part of the world entirely, brand new, like new school that you get to deal with, maybe a more, I guess, monster infested area of the world. I think that would be cool.
Now, we don't get a lot. I don't know of a CD Projekt Red game that we have where they didn't have a character to build a story out of, or they didn't have a character to build a story out of. Does that make sense? Like the 3 Witcher games were built around a universe and a story that was already there before. Cyberpunk was built on top of the character of Johnny Silverhand and these other characters, and they brought in a new protagonist, but basically played off of that story and then built in and around it. And theoretically, they could do the same thing with this, but like you said, this was wrapped up. They would have to follow. Most studios work in patterns because they're comfortable in those patterns. Most writers work in patterns. Most creators work in patterns. So I would expect them to take somebody or some setting or something from what we've already seen and use that as a thread to connect us into whatever the next game is. So we would see characters reemerge. And even if we are creating a new Witcher from a different school in a different place, we would probably see 2 or 3 side characters from the previous series be key components in where the story is then going. Do you guys have any sense of who that would be? Like, who would show up again?
I mean, if we're talking about returning characters, probably more likely since she's a mage.
You think Yen, but isn't her story kind of tied up too? Would we see her? What other mages would we see then? Like if it wasn't her, would we see Triss still? Because Triss's story really isn't finished.
I mean,
True.
it can be.
Well,
it can be.
It depends on your ending, really.
Maybe, I would assume so. I think that the more canonical romance actually, I guess maybe you might be able to see both of them because Geralt basically just screws anything. So like he probably would have gone for the threesome route and then gotten bonked and never gotten either of them.
Gotten bonked.
So because that's the truth. Geralt literally goes after everything. I mean, Season of Storms, he's got an entirely different sorceress that he's bonking.
It's Coral.
So, yeah, it's like, dude, like, I mean, yeah, that's just my thought. Is that's probably what would be more than likely.
But we have let's think of it this way. If we're a Witcher, there's almost always a good buddy character, a powerful sorceress character, a somebody who's not human good buddy character, right? We need kind of that that party that kind of emerges around you. I feel like some of that would re-show, or maybe some of the other side characters that show up in like the expansion stuff would emerge as key characters for the main story.
Yeah, I mean, we could get Shani again because her story was never wrapped. She leaves and goes to another war at the end of Hearts of Stone.
True.
Or would we get even more moral quandaries with people who are monsters who are still people? You know, vampires.
That's always going to be an aspect.
But are we going to get them playing more and more of like a key role? So instead of a bard, having a vampire who's like a best friend who's there with you the whole time, you know, that kind of thing.
Maybe. I mean, like I said, if we could stay, obviously we can stay on the continent, but like, I feel like going off and expanding in a new like direction and getting new places, because that's a big thing people want out of games normally, is like a newer setting. Because if they just put us on the same place, it's like, we've been here before. Yeah. So having a newer setting where you never know what those people's thoughts are towards these things. Like maybe we go off, you know, towards or past the desert where the Manticore school is, and maybe they're all like super cool and like racism just isn't a thing over there because they're actually accepting of people. This is the Witcher universe. It's not going to happen, but still, I can hope, you know.
Well, Klavir's somewhat accepting, at least for mages.
But they gotta, I think that's also treading a line, because the kind of things like that are, you know, getting like even less and less accepted nowadays. So it's like they kind of got to think about that whenever they're making the game too, of like having that general acceptance of things, because it's not people don't like these aspects of games as much anymore. Or
right, and the intrinsic racism of different characters and classes and races and the stuff representing real world things in derogatory ways. Well, the other thing about a different location would be the ability to work in monsters and beasts and things that weren't in the other games, because they might have, you know, made their homes in different kinds of biomes that fit them better, right? Like desert creatures or snow creatures, things like that we didn't really spend a whole lot of time with, because we spent most of our time in swamps and islands.
So that would be cool. Getting like, I mean, I think we're going to get new monsters pretty much regardless, because that's also a main aspect of The Witcher that people want, is cool monsters that are scary and awesome.
Yeah. That's true. Well, I think I'm out of questions. Toasty, do you have anything else you want to ask Ben before we have to wrap this up?
I did earlier and I forgot. Oh,
They're out of his head.
Oh,
Out of his head.
man.
Ben, do you have any
Too
questions
busy
for us?
talking.
Anything that you wanted to bring up?
No, I don't really have any questions per se, really.
All right.
I'm actually curious. I think it was you that said it right. So you played the Witcher TTRPG?
Yes. I played a little bit with it, and then I'm eventually going to get like a campaign with some of my friends, because I know they just released the Book of Tales, and I've been reading through that. And if you read at the end of it, there's a new stat bar for Dandelion, and he has all the same skills as Geralt, but one higher.
Yes.
Nope.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited because I know I remember Cody being on the show and saying about the next Rodolph's guide to the guide of the continent, to where they're going to go more in depth to locations. That's what I'm really excited for. Get more in-depth location, get the maps of all the areas, and be able to use that in the game.
Okay.
Yeah, it's cool. All of the content that they put out for the tabletop games, because they can iterate on that stuff way faster than you can for video games. Mm-hmm. Because you don't have to create all the content that you do for video games with all the assets and programming and things. You can do so much more for a tabletop. So you really do get a lot more content. And man, it would be neat to have, it'd be really cool is to have some sort of connection between the video games that come out and the tabletop stuff, so that there was some play between the two.
I mean, they might do that. They did that with Cyberpunk, where they had some of the, they were just references really, but maybe playing off of that stuff. So it shows that they're willing to work with Art Talsorian, which the same guys for The Witcher. So
yeah, who knows? I mean, there could be some really creative stuff going on between the two things. So it'll be exciting to see what the future holds. So very cool stuff. Well, Ben, thank you for joining us. This has been super fun, and thank you for supporting the show. We really do appreciate all of your support and
having me.
Yeah, this is great. I hope you decide to join us again next month, and maybe we'll have some new people to join us as well, and we can pick some other new topics to cover. We can get into some more specifics. We wanted to just kind of get to know you a little bit on this episode, and I think we did a pretty good job of that. We got a sense of, your interests and the things that you're into with The Witcher, but we can tackle all sorts of different topics. We can cover specific details, in the stories, in the games, any of that stuff, or even just very specific things that we've covered in the month leading up to the conversation that we're having. There are some other things that I've done with some of the other shows where I've even set up fun little games that we can play. So we can have I can set up a bunch of questions, and we can have you versus Toasty on a quiz show or something like that, which is always fun. And usually I try not to make the questions, too one-sided towards who's going to win. They tend to be pretty fair or just totally out there, so that they're just absolutely ridiculous. And then whoever gets closest to the answer gets the points, that kind of thing. So
that one's going to be so hard. There's so much stuff to pull from for Witcher.
Yeah, or it's just
what this question is. This question based on the books? Is it based on the games? Is it based on the show?
Right,
is it based on the movie?
And I would try to be specific. In the TV series, this means this, or how many years did this castle stand for? And then it's going to be stuff like that, and you're going to be like, oh man, 500? I don't know.
He's going to ask us that. How long did Castle Morgrave stand?
Right.
I don't remember.
I don't know. I think they first mentioned it in the books, maybe in here, and then maybe there was a siege when this. Who knows? Yeah, it's gonna be that kind of stuff. So it'll be a lot of fun. But is there anything you want to share before we head out? Anything you're doing that are super cool, or ways people can get a hold of you?
So I live in Ohio, so I'm in the Midwestern area. So we're having our Renaissance Fair here starting this Labor Day.
Yeah.
And it's going to be for 2 months straight, and I will be cosplaying as Ben of Temeria.
Nice.
For Renaissance Fair. So if anybody's in Ohio and sees me at Ren Fair, I will be the one that with 2 swords on my back.
Very cool. Very cool. Do you have the swords already?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have the
Awesome.
swords. They're actually LARP swords. So if anybody's interested, you can go to, it's a Canadian store that is called, I think they're called Calamassol, I think that's how you pronounce it. But they do collaborations with CD Projekt to get the game files to make LARP weapons.
Oh, cool. So they're like,
what is a LARP weapon?
So it's like it has like a rod in the middle of the sword, and it's high density foam. So you can actually do a lot of LARPing with it. So you can like do a lot of reenactments or like do LARPing battles where people can fight each other with fake weapons and stuff like that.
you can hit somebody and not actually cut their head off, but still don't break your own sword.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was curious. I was just curious about that because I know I've went to Rinsfest. I've dressed up for Rinsfest like one time, but I took an actual sword with me because they don't have a problem with that. It's like, okay.
Nope, they sell them.
Yeah. So I was like walking around with a sword, just like, I feel cool.
Oh man. Yeah, don't hit anyone with a real sword. That's not allowed.
You're not allowed to draw them if they're a real sword, I believe.
No, a lot of times, at least our
sheathed.
Yeah, a lot of our Ren Fair, they actually zip tie them, so you can't, like, if you even try to, you obviously wouldn't be able to.
I don't think they did that for mine, but I knew I could hand it to like a worker and they could look at it if they wanted to or something. So,
well, that's our lesson for the week, everybody. Keep it sheathed. All right. Well, awesome.
that totally doesn't have any other connotation.
There's no other connotation for that at all. Well, thanks for joining us, Ben. Toasty, anything else you want to share before we head out?
Just follow us on Twitter, Witcher Lorecast, or sign up to become a patron, the Witcher Lorecast on Patreon.
There you go. And I'm on Twitter, robots_radio. So at robots_radio. And after this, we have the Xbox Game Pass show coming up next with me and N7 Legend. And I've been sharing all sorts of funny stuff on Twitter. I shared somebody did some really cool work on all the different Witcher medallions. And I shared that on, and I always tag the Witcher Lorecast Twitter as well. And so that gets reshared on both my account and the Witcher account. But I've been sharing some stuff on there, so some cool stuff as well. And of course, there is the Robots Radio Discord where we post things, and man, there's already over 1,800 people from all the different podcasts we do on the Robots Radio Network jumping in there, chatting about all sorts of different things on all the different channels. So we'd love to see you in there talking about The Witcher and whatever other games you like to play.
And if you're curious about the storyline of The Witcher 1 and don't want to go through the complex process of trying to figure out how to play that game, our friends over at the Roll to Cast podcast are doing a Witcher 1 playthrough on their YouTube channel.
Yes.
So
yes, they do. The Roll to Cast is a live play podcast where they play tabletop RPG games, including Cyberpunk and a bunch of other games as well. They're super fun. They're a bunch of Aussies, so they've got awesome accents.
They're really talented. I think they're all like actual like actors.
Yep.
So like they have like they're professional. They're really good.
Yeah. Professional.
So,
they're professional. Awesome. Hilarious people,
and they have Australian accents.
With Australian accents.
Well, okay, sometimes
That sells it.
a lot of times they play characters with different accents.
So there you go. But yeah, just go to robotsradio.net, check out all the different shows on there, and you'll find all sorts of things to listen to. But Ben, thank you again for being with us. And I will be back in the next like 20-25 minutes, and I'll be setting up the Xbox Game Pass show. So we'll see you guys in a little bit. Thanks everybody for being here. We'll see you next time. All right. See you guys. Thanks for tuning into the Witcher Lorecast. We'd love to hear about your experiences with the games and the books and the TV series and all your thoughts on everything. Please check out the Robots Radio Discord and follow us on Twitter at Witcher Lorecast.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.